Good evening. Welcome to Meetings with Our Community.
Climate change marches took place in New York City and worldwide. Thousands of people took in the streets with over 2,700 marches in more than 150 countries around the world for a push to curb carbon emissions.
Some of us will sacrifice our lives.
Some of us will sacrifice our lives.
But we will stand together.
But we will stand together.
The march kicked up on a 2-mile route along Central Park in the Upper West Side. More than 310,000 activists with more than 1,100 organizations endorsed the march, which was organized by a coalition of more than 350 organizations.
Who is affected by the military-industrial complex across the face of the earth? Women and children.
The march was the first in a series of events held around the world this week to shine a spotlight on global warming.
Many New Yorkers don't have access to a vehicle, so schlepping an old TV or computer to be recycled isn't easy. That's why the Department of Sanitation partnered with Electronic Recyclers International to create eCycle NYC. This free and convenient electronics recycling program is for residential buildings over 10 units. Learn more at nyc.gov/ecycle.
There's not enough verbs or nouns or the colonizer words that can describe how I feel right now. I see everyone. So thank you for being here. Thank you for all our relatives that spoke and helped us with this prayer to start us off.
Kaya has traveled around the world to bring the message of peace and love. She has been speaking for the environment and speaking for the children.
Who we are will continue for many generations. So we're not living in the past. We're not a dying breed. We are trying to spread and bring back light and revitalize culture and knowledge and respect within our communities. That when we bring the culture, when we bring our spiritualities, the love, the compassion, and the trust back into our communities, our indigenous communities, that doesn't stay in the indigenous communities. Because love, compassion, and beautiful human qualities are shared between all humanity, all people, the tree people, plant people, the animals. So this song was translated by my kukpa, my grandfather, and I hope you enjoy it.
The UN Climate Summit Change, where President Obama and world leaders of 140 nations.
There's one issue that will define the contours of this century more dramatically than any other, and that is the urgent and growing threat of a changing climate. 5 years have passed since many of us met in Copenhagen, and since then our understanding of climate change has advanced, both in the deepening science that says this once distant threat has moved firmly into the present, and into the sting of more frequent extreme weather events that show us exactly what these changes may mean for future generations. No nation is immune. In America, the past decade has been our hottest on record. Along our eastern coast, the city of Miami now floods at high tide. In our west, wildfire season now stretches most of the year. In our heartland, farms have been parched by the worst drought in generations and drenched by the wettest spring in our history. A hurricane left parts of this great city dark and underwater, and some nations already live with far worse. Worldwide, this summer was the hottest ever recorded, with global carbon emissions still on the rise. So the climate is changing faster than our efforts to address it. The alarm bells keep ringing. Our citizens keep marching. We cannot pretend we do not hear them. We have to answer the call. We know what we have to do to avoid irreparable harm. We have to cut carbon pollution in our own countries to prevent the worst effects of climate change. We have to adapt to the impacts that, unfortunately, we can no longer avoid. And we have to work together as a global community to tackle this global threat before it is too late. We cannot condemn our children and their children to a future that is beyond their capacity to repair. Not when we have the means, the technological innovation, and the scientific imagination to begin the work of repairing it right now. As one of America's governors has said, we are the first generation to feel the impact of climate change and the last generation that can do something about it. So today I am here personally as the leader of the world's largest economy and its second largest emitter to say that we have begun to do something about it. The United States has made ambitious investments in clean energy and ambitious reductions in our carbon emissions. We now harness 3 times as much electricity from the wind and 10 times as much from the sun as we did when I came into office. Within a decade, our cars will go twice as far on a gallon of gas, and already every major automaker offers electric vehicles. We've made unprecedented investments to cut energy waste in our homes and our buildings and our appliances, all of which will save consumers billions of dollars, and we are committed to helping communities build climate-resilient infrastructure. So all told, these advances have helped create jobs, grow our economy, and drive our carbon pollution to its lowest levels in nearly 2 decades, proving that there does not have to be a conflict between a sound environment and strong economic growth. Over the past 8 years, the United States has reduced our total carbon pollution by more than any other nation on earth. But we have to do more. Last year, I issued America's first climate action plan to double down on our efforts. Under that plan, my administration is working with states and utilities to set first-ever standards to cut the amount of carbon pollution our power plants can dump into the air. And when completed, this will mark the single most important and significant step the United States has ever taken to reduce our carbon emissions. Last week alone, we announced an array of new actions in renewable energy and energy efficiency that will save consumers more than $10 billion on their energy bills and cut carbon pollution by nearly 300 million metric tons through 2030. That's the equivalent of taking more than 60 million cars off the road for 1 year. I also convened a group of private sector leaders who have agreed to do their part to slash consumption of dangerous greenhouse gases known as HFCs, slash them 80% by 2050. And already more than 100 nations have agreed to launch talks to phase down HFCs under the Montreal Protocol. The same agreement the world used successfully to phase out ozone-depleting chemicals. This is something that President Xi of China and I have worked on together. Just a few minutes ago, I met with Chinese Vice Premier Zhang Guoli and reiterated my belief that as the two largest economies and emitters in the world, we have a special responsibility to lead. That's what big nations have to do. And today I call on all countries to join us. Not next year or the year after that, but right now. Because no nation can meet this global threat alone. The United States has engaged more allies and partners to cut carbon pollution and prepare for the impacts we cannot avoid. All told, American climate assistance now reaches more than 120 nations around the world. We're helping more nations skip past the dirty phase of development using current technologies, not duplicating the same mistakes and environmental degradation that took place previously. We're partnering with African entrepreneurs to launch clean energy projects. We're helping farmers practice climate-smart agriculture and plant more durable crops. We're building international coalitions to drive action from reducing methane emissions from pipelines to launching a free trade agreement for environmental goods. And we have been working shoulder to shoulder with many of you to make the Green Climate Fund a reality. But let me be honest, none of this is without controversy. In each of our countries, there are interests that will be resistant to action. And in each country, there is a suspicion that if we act and other countries don't, that we will be at an economic disadvantage. But we have to lead. That is what the United Nations and this General Assembly is about. Now, the truth is that no matter what we do, some populations will still be at risk. The nations that contribute the least to climate change often stand to lose the most. And that's why, since I took office, the United States has expanded our direct adaptation assistance 8-fold. And we're going to do more. Today, I'm directing our federal agencies to begin factoring climate resilience into our international development programs and investments. And I'm announcing a new effort to deploy the unique scientific and technological capabilities of the United States, from climate data to early warning systems. So this effort includes a new partnership that will draw on the resources and expertise of our leading private sector companies and philanthropies to help vulnerable nations better prepare for weather-related disasters and better plan for long-term threats like steadily rising seas. Yes, this is hard, but there should be no question that the United States of America is stepping up to the plate. We recognize our role in creating this problem. We embrace our responsibility to combat it. We will do our part, and we will help developing nations do theirs. But we can only succeed in combating climate change if we are joined in this effort by every nation, developed and developing alike. Nobody gets a pass. The emerging economies that have experienced some of the most dynamic growth in recent years have also emitted rising levels of carbon pollution. It is those emerging economies that are likely to produce more and more carbon emissions in the years to come. So nobody can stand on the sidelines on this issue. We have to set aside the old divides. We have to raise our collective ambition, each of us doing what we can to confront this global challenge. This time we need an agreement that reflects economic realities in the next decade and beyond. It must be ambitious, because that's what the scale of this challenge demands. It must be inclusive, because every country must play its part. And yes, it must be flexible, because different nations have different circumstances. 5 years ago, I pledged America would reduce our carbon emissions in the range of 17% below 2005 levels by the year 2020. America will meet that target. And by early next year, we will put forward our next emission target, reflecting our confidence in the ability of our technological entrepreneurs and scientific innovators to lead the way. So today I call on all major economies to do the same. For I believe, in the words of Dr. King, that there is such a thing as being too late. And for the sake of future generations, our generation must move toward a global compact to confront a changing climate while we still can. This challenge demands our ambition. Our children deserve such ambition. And if we act now, if we can look beyond the swarm of current events and some of the economic challenges and political challenges involved, if we place the air that our children will breathe and the food that they will eat and the hopes and dreams of all posterity above our own short-term interests, we may not be too late for them. While you and I may not live to see all the fruits of our labor, we can act to see that the century ahead is marked not by conflict but by cooperation, not by human suffering but by human progress, and that the world we leave to our children and our children's children will be cleaner and healthier and more prosperous and secure. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Many New Yorkers don't have access to a vehicle, so schlepping an old TV or computer to be recycled isn't easy. That's why the Department of Sanitation partnered with Electronic Recyclers International to create eCycle NYC. This free and convenient electronics recycling program is for residential buildings over 10 units. Learn more at nyc.gov/ecycle.
While no single wildfire can be said to have been caused by climate change has been making the fire season in the United States longer and, on average, more intense. I'm John Holdren, President Obama's science advisor, here to talk about climate change and wildfires, a topic that's on the mind of many who are grappling with tragic losses from the recent spate of uncontrolled fires in the northwestern United States and Canada. The influence of climate change on the wildfire regime comes not just from the higher summer temperatures and reduced summer soil moisture that go with global warming. Climate change is also bringing us more dead trees, kindling in effect, killed by a combination of heat stress, water stress, and attacks by pests and pathogens that multiply faster in a warmer world. The National Climate Assessment released in May tells us, consistent with earlier studies, that longer, hotter, drier summers are projected to continue to increase the frequency and the intensity of large wildfires in the United States. In the western United States, the average annual area burned by large wildfires has increased several-fold in recent decades. The evidence is strong that climate change is responsible, at least in part, for this increase. And the West is not the only U.S. region affected by wildfire. Today, the southeastern United States leads the nation in number of wildfires, averaging 45,000 fires per year, and this number continues to increase. And nationwide, the 8 worst years on record in terms of area burned have all occurred since the year 2000. Wildfires, of course, are dangerous to human life and health, costly in terms of property loss, and generally harmful to ecosystems. They destroy valuable timber and wildlife, as well as homes and other built infrastructure. They promote soil erosion. They increase the risk from floods and landslides. And the damage can extend far beyond the location of the fire itself, through the impact of the smoke plume on air quality far downwind, and the destruction of downstream fisheries choked with silt eroded from slopes denuded by fire. In short, wildfires accentuated by climate change are putting communities, lives, health, jobs, and valuable natural resources at risk. I encourage you to learn more about the science of this issue by visiting whitehouse.gov/climate change.
Solar panels in the White House, I think, are a really important message that solar is here. We are doing it. We can do a lot more. I am very bullish on the future of solar energy as a key part of our clean energy future.
The size of the array that we established here is the typical size for the average American house. Being at the White House, we do have some security concerns. We can't cover the entire roof with panels, though that would be good from an energy saving standpoint.
Everything from the solar components to the inverter technologies to the labor that put the panels on the roof was all American, domestic source, domestic made. It serves as a symbol that American technology in solar is available, it's reliable, and it's ready for millions of Americans across the country.
So the first thing what we did was we drilled down to the concrete and then basically epoxied a series of threaded rods back up through the batten tops. We then were able to install a series of grids for a subassembly upon which the solar panels could then be secured.
Clean energy revolution is not something for the distant future. It's happening right now, and we want to capture that.
Every 4 minutes, some small business or homeowner is going solar. In a sense, we're going through a transition here, and the industry is going through a transition that we're just seeing the beginning of.
The president is basically doing what Americans all across the nation are doing right now. They're making the conscious choice to look for renewable energy like solar as the cheaper, cleaner, and preferred energy source for their homes and families.
You know, we need a diversified clean energy portfolio as articulated in the president's Climate Action Plan, which we are actively engaged in now. And we also need to spur the economic sectors of the future. Last year alone, we created over 23,000 new jobs in solar energy.
Obviously, the more that we can, install renewable energy sources, the better off not just the White House is, but the nation is, and so is the whole planet.
I want to save New York City. So I'm going to work with the NRDC next spring on legal research to help save the environment.
My name is James Salwin, and I want to save my ancestral homeland, the Rockaways, from climate change. Therefore, I won't drive, I'll take the subway and walk.
My name's Zainab, and I would like to save my family from climate change.
My name's Anton, and I'd like to save us from climate change. So to do that,
I would bike more.
And I would walk more.
Candace, and I don't want to lose the beaches to climate change, so I will conserve energy.
Hi, my name is Sarah, and I don't want to lose nature trails or biking because of climate change, so I am willing to bike to school.
Vente a Barca.
New York City is firmly committed to an 80% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2050.
To help curb these emissions, the mayor unveils sweeping plans to retrofit public and private buildings across the city to make them greener and more energy efficient. The plan will help generate 3,500 new jobs and will save New Yorkers from higher energy costs, while greatly reducing the city's carbon footprint. City Parks and NBA Cares helped restore a Staten Island basketball court and playground battered by Hurricane Sandy. The mayor and NBA officials cut ribbon on the rebuilt Midland Beach court and playground to crowds of students from surrounding neighborhood schools. The city's municipal ID program, available to all city residents starting January 2015, will offer cardholders a free year of membership at each of the city's 33 leading cultural institutions, including major museums, performing arts centers, and zoos.
They're going to help lead the way in our efforts to use much more renewable energy in New York City.
As part of the city's plan to curb 80% of its greenhouse emissions by 2050, solar panels will be installed at 24 city schools over the next 2 years and at over 300 city-owned buildings in the next decade. The Kennedy High School campus in the Bronx is one of 9 schools outfitted with the new technology. In other news, the mayor signed an executive order to raise the city's living wage. Under the expanded provision, the hourly wage will go from $11.90 to $13.13 and will likely reach $15.22 in 5 years. And finally, when it comes to volunteering in the city, everybody's got something to offer. Teach yoga, give tours of city landmarks, or help keep the parks clean. Visit nyc.gov/service and use your time, passion, and skills to serve New York City.
This facility has the capacity to process about 1,000 tons a day, which is the largest of its kind in terms of what we do, meaning handling residential bottles and cans, commingled metal, glass, and plastic. Largest facility of that type in the country, if not the world. New Yorkers put I would say, a broader array of materials in their recycling program than most curbside recycling programs. We get everything from Christmas trees to bowling balls and things like that. So what we're trying to do is obviously automate it as much as possible. We pull in a lot of components that are really from construction demolition waste processing and the scrap metal business so that we can handle the city's material. So we have a slow speed shredder as well as ballistic separators, which again would not be typical. It's inevitable that there is going to be some manual component. Certain materials require manual quality control step because the machinery is not perfect. We try to limit that, but use it where we have to, for quality purposes primarily. So we have 850 feet of dock for barging in material as well as barging out material. We have rail siding and obviously truck access. We sell to customers all around the world. They're mostly in North America. Our plastic customers are mostly down south. Steel customers are, in Pennsylvania and Ohio. If we do our job right, we assemble the equipment in a way that we can have very high throughput, have high quality products at the end, and do that with minimal operating costs. Aside from commodity markets and participation rates at the household level, that's the key to our profitability.
Thank you for watching Meetings with Our Community. We hope that you have enjoyed our show, and we hope to see you next week.